you're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Yes, sir.
I really didn't think we would win on Saturday, and we completely uncoved it and did a good win, didn't we?
Did it well. I always think we were going to win. So
I'm going to start with a question this week from Laurie, a frequent podcast guest. Mainly just to kind of use it as an opportunity to slam him at the earliest possible moment. He says, would you be happy for us to continue this attritional style of football throughout the season? Guys, attritional football or a passing masterclass on Saturday?
Complete.
I would say probably not quite either. But why don't we start off with moments of the week? Neil, why don't you kick off?
Mr. Devon Kelly-Evans scored a goal. Was happy about it. I was happy about it. Everybody was happy about it. And yeah, it was pleasing. I liked the celebration. I liked it. That it meant a lot to him. I liked that all the players got around him. And I like that Michael Doyle had a smile on his face as well. So yeah, just very happy about that.
I thought he played really well. I think we'll come on to this in a bit. We talked about Grimmer and is it a problem that he's keeping Dion Kelly-Evans out, blah, 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 blah. We've given time. I think he's perfectly fine. But I do think now is the time for Kelly-Evans squared.
It would be nice to see, wouldn't it?
Although
it won't happen. Never in a million years. Cause
I don't think...
No. Are you two familiar with the Disney film Big Hero 6? Paul, I assume,
Indeed.
as a father, you are. I imagine that a team full of Kelly-Evanses would be very much like the start of the film, where Hero brings his own robot out, which appears diminutive, but then turns out to be a tremendous fighter and very spirited. I think that's what a team of Kelly-Evanses would look like. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
I think that sort of takes away from... He showed some touches of ability, which we'll get on to other players later on. But I think we're all predisposed to like Dion and Devon Kelly-Evans, mainly because we know they're Cov fans. We know they absolutely love playing for the club. But we've had players in the past who have been triers who don't seem to have any or as much natural ability. These pair have actually got natural ability, and some of the touches Devon was showing belied his lack of experience. I think it's not just his work rate which really impressed me, it was the ability to play football, which I think stood out as being the main positive, to be honest.
I know that neither of you two, nor anybody listening, wants me to carry on with this tortured Big Hero 6 analysis, right? But actually, Hero's microbot robot was very skillful and talented. That's surely why it's such an incredible reference point.
But I think everyone's talking about I think it's one of those things. He worked really hard and he tackles and he's so small, but he never. And it's like, yeah, that there is all that attributes to him. But the main attribute which I took out of it was give him the ball at his feet. He's not a clumsy idiot. He actually has ability and he's actually got something about him. Like, you can have all the tries in the world, but if you've got... And I'll skip to the very end. When the ball went across to him, apart from making sure the duck didn't get in his way, as soon as the ball was full at his foot, you knew he was going to score that goal. You just knew it. You could see that he had no worries. There was no fear in his eyes. It was just like, 6 yards out, I can do this. And I think that's massive, isn't it? That's what we've talked about in the past, sort of to the manner born type thing. It's like he looks like he was ready for it.
And 82nd minute breakaway, he's in the box, which obviously made me very happy. Paul, your moment of the week, please.
Well, as you know, I like to be proven right. And I feel like I was proven right on Saturday, where I said on this pod a couple of weeks ago that it might take a couple of injuries and suddenly we'll see a better team. Where I was wrong is I didn't see Biamu as being part of that better team.
Ooh,
and
okay.
I've seen things in him I didn't think I wasn't expecting. I thought he really grew into the game on Saturday. I know he seems to have taken a bit of flack, which I don't quite understand, because giving him, it's like he got loads of flack for missing chances. McNulty got none. What's the difference? Let's not kneel on that one. But I just felt that we needed Bevan out the team, and that happened. And I don't think we missed his work rate at all. And I think we needed Vincenzi out of the team. And I think we just seemed a lot more dynamic in the front four. And considering Exeter were top of the table, I think our front four, while not being absolutely on it, should have walked away probably with a goal apiece. And I can't remember the last time we saw all four attacking players got in positions to have chances, let alone score. So those four are definitely, they should be starting the next couple of games. I know the Ducks cup tied, isn't he? He's going for international games in a couple of weeks. But especially the next two games, I'll be very disappointed if those four aren't the starters.
Join us for more next week on Needless to Say, I Had the Last Laugh. I'm going to go for full time as moment of the week, because you can probably count on one hand the amount of times that we've played a team who were top of the league, or that sort of point where you have questions where you go, well, this would be an interesting one to give you an indication of where we're at right now. We fuck it up every time, don't we? Bar Gillingham a couple of seasons ago, the obvious one. I think about, there's going to be loads, and I guess everyone will have their own different versions of it, but I think about getting beat 3-2 at home by Leeds under Boothroyd when Ben Turner scored 2, and I think shortly afterwards playing Norwich on that snow day and getting beat and Gunnarsson getting sent off. There's loads of times where it never comes through. And whilst I don't think it was a game that matched up to the standard of Gillingham, and I think equally it's a slightly different situation, I think it told us an awful lot on Saturday. And I think, Paul, you've talked about some of it already with some of the personnel changes. I don't think I agree with you 100% on each of the specific ones. I'm sure we'll talk about that as this goes on. But that it did seem hopefully portentous of, one, the team that we could be, given a bit of consistency, and a team that looked a bit more like the one that played on Saturday. And it was just say what you want about it, and we're going to say a lot about it, I assume. It was a pretty confident, assured performance, wasn't it, against a team who didn't turn up looking like I expected them to.
Yes.
There we go.
Sorry, that intake of breath from Paul, I felt you were going to say something.
Yeah, so did I. Paul, you're going to sort of lead on the discussion of the game. The question that I'm going to use to lead you into it is from Callum Hands on Twitter. He says, did Bevan getting injured in the warm-up win us the game? Personally, I think so. That's not the question that I want to ask you. The question I want to ask you is, did you injure him?
As I said to you when we were stood upstairs, knowing my luck, I'd have done to Stuart Bevan what Homer Simpson did to Monty Burns in the in the 10-pin bowling team, where Burns was walking in with a crippled knee. Homer hit him with a crowbar, and then fixed his knee. So it was a bit of a shock, because we all walked up. We'd all obviously seen the team, and we walked up, and it was like, okay, and it's like, who the bloody hell's that? That's not Bevan's not playing. And Devon Kelly Evans started behind the Duck with Vincenzi on one side and Jones on the other. And I'd like to just take one quick second to talk about Exeter, because I think that they are worthy of note. One thing I was very interested with Exeter, and to be fair, I suppose this is what comes when you're top of the table. They came and played 4-4-2 for basically the entire 90 minutes. I think at one point they might have changed to 3-5-2. But one thing they didn't do, which has been one of my big reservations about us going forward, is they didn't sit at any point. They didn't defend with 9 players. The game was very open, and I think in the first half, it sort of didn't. They were at half time. I thought that Exeter were probably out the two sides the happier, and I put that down to the fact that we hadn't really stretched them. We'd had a couple of opportunities, but again, quite long range shots, which seems to be our forte. We don't really, or until the second half, we didn't really break them down. I thought our passing from back to front was quite poor. I thought Doyle had a great game at winning the ball, and then an awful game with distribution, especially in the first half. And we were very laboured in what we were doing. It was very slow, it was very one pace, and it was very very hit and miss, and we fell into that problem which we fall into every now and then when teams sort of give us the ball a little bit, is we get to the point where we start hitting 40-yard passes. I've never been a massive fan of those passes because often they're floated passes. So you get McDonald floating the ball 40 yards to Jody Jones, and it's like, well, it looks good and everyone claps, but by the time Jody Jones has got the ball under control, the defender's on him because he's had to control it on his chest and bring it down. If you play the ball into Jody Jones's feet and he can turn on it, then he's going to skin his man every time. If you float the ball 40 yards to his chest, he's not going to get away. And he had quite a quiet first half. He still had his obligatory long-range curling shot, but I thought Exeter played well in the first half. I thought we weren't quite hitting our passes, and we were a bit stated, and it was a bit of a surprise, sort of the way the game went first, when it went from first half, second half. The other big thing that happened in the first half was I thought Vincenzi was having one of his better games for us, and it was a bit of a shame in a way that he went down injured. It wasn't really until the second half played out as it did, you realise that again gave us a big boost, because it meant that Devon Kelly-Evans went to the right wing and Jody Jones went to the left, and we had Biamu and the Duck up front, which gave us probably the best balance we've had this season, just having two players who are quite quick, quite direct, and are prepared to try things. And as I said, I was impressed with Devon Kelly-Evans because of the fact he is obviously technically gifted. So having his work rate and that ability gave us, for the first time probably this season, the ability to go down either wing. I didn't, don't get me wrong, we still went down Jones's wing more often than anywhere else. But for the first time, I felt we could actually go down both sides. And the other thing was, we had quite an interesting chat, me and Pritchard, at half time about Grimmer, because I neither rate nor don't rate Grimmer. I don't really have an opinion on him. A bit like Liam Kelly, Kelly's grown on me as the season's gone on, and I do like Kelly now. I think he's a lot better than I worried he might be at the start, and he's really taking the games by the scruff of the neck. And I think him and Doyle, while I still worry at times he's a bit defensive, I think that dynamic is improving, especially when we don't use Doyle to be our linchpin passing midfielder. But Grimmer, I'm still yet to be convinced by, which is why I'm going to make this statement. In the second half, he was awful. His winger had him. His winger had him every time. I think his winger went up. It was more than that. So because we watched it, because Pritchard wanted to prove me wrong. So he watched it and he just kept doing it. He did it about 4 or 5 times. And it was just, and at one point, Pritchard just turned to me and went, he's just given up there. And you could just see Grimmer just didn't believe he could stop him. So at one point, he just let him go. And it was defensively, it was poor. And it was like, okay, the guy, they didn't lead to anything. But it was defensively, it was a poor performance. And on the other side, Stokes didn't have that good a game until he had his right foot shot hit the bar. And after that, I think Stokes stepped it up. But Stokes has had quite a slow start to the season. But no, take that out. I thought McDonald is really, I mean, I'm just beginning to become amazed that we actually managed to get McDonald down to League Two, because he's standing out in every game we see him in. He's just dominant at the back.
I'm led to believe that with McDonald, that he wasn't a particular standout performer in the Northampton team that went up. Is that right, or have I imagined that? Because I find it very hard to believe. He looks, I really like him.
They weren't too fussed, were they? When they weren't making too many sounds about, we've lost a good player there. They'd been perfectly fine that they got rid of him. So yeah, I think he's faultless so far. I mean, in the games I see him, he's just, I can't have anything bad to say against him. He's just the impeccable central defender that I want. Q tomorrow night, him doing something ridiculous, but up to this point, he's been very good.
It's just bizarre that I know that sort of law of averages and it's the way that football works and everything, but probably the last, let's say, 20 centre-halves we've signed, maybe one of them has been all right, or two possibly, but it's been a very long time since we've had a player come in and just look very good straight away. It's probably Sam Ricketts, but then Sam Ricketts, his performances have probably started to drop by now, haven't they?
But the other thing... Sorry, go on.
I'm just thinking back to last year when you had Jordan Willis, who technically was our best defender. Now we're a league below, and Rod McDonald makes Jordan Willis look not average because he's still playing well himself. But there's just there's a class above there as well, isn't there? It's quite hard to see. Yeah,
absolutely.
But the only caveat I'd have on that is no teams actually come and sort of dominated us yet. So,
they can't with Rob McDonald there. I think that's what saying. I think it would be impossible to imagine us losing.
Yeah, I mean, also it does help by the fact that we play with Doyle and Kelly in the centre midfield, so we tend to win the sort of the midfield battle, as it were. It'd be interesting to see It'd be interesting if. Hopefully, we're going to win promotion. It'd be interesting to see next season when we're up against teams who are more likely to try and beat us. I still think there's a lot of teams who, and I think Exeter did, and I think I thought he played really well, so that's why he got the comments. But I'll be more interested to some extent next season because I think he does look a step above at this level at this moment in time. And as I said, I think that's the same with Kelly. The more I watch Kelly, the more I'm impressed we've managed to sort of keep him in League Two. And then up front, I mean, if we leave the star man till the end, the Duck's an interesting one. I think I don't know why, but I really like the Duck, and it's nothing to do with work rate or enthusiasm for the game. I think it's just the fact that I know he just wants to score goals. I know he doesn't give a shit about anything else. I know he's not really interested in the rest of the game. He just wants to score, and I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take someone who doesn't give a shit about anything but wants to be the hero, because we've got Doyle and Kelly, two defensive midfielders. It's like we can cope with a striker who's not going to work that hard, because Exeter were probably one of the better teams bringing it out from the back. They still weren't particularly good at bringing it out the back. So I can cope with the Duck being slight enigma because I think he does offer something, and I think also when he is a physical presence. He's an awkward player to play against. He's not conventional, so I think he gives us something different. And I think Charlie Harris asked whether or not we think if we replaced him with McNulty would score goals. I'm not sure. I just think the Duck does create things by the way he holds himself, his presence, his sort of where he stands. He doesn't mess around. When he was up front, He just made sure those defenders knew that he was permanently waiting for that opportunity. He wasn't worried about dropping deep. He was just on the back four. And I think that's helped stretch the game. And the other players is Biamu, who I think just grew into the game. I do feel for him with those missed chances, because it is the sort of thing which can affect you, especially as a striker when you get opportunities. And the one he put wide, I said to Joey earlier, isn't the fact he missed. It was just the way he missed was a bit like you could just see his sort of face dropped after that. It was a big miss for him because he knew that was his opportunity. If he scores that, he definitely starts on Tuesday. He gives himself a bit of grace. So that miss, but I hope that doesn't affect him, because around the rest of his game, I think he's not brilliant, but he showed something, and he showed to me that if you play him and the Duck closer together, I think that's a strike partnership. I think they need to be playing alongside each other a lot closer than when we play one behind the other. They made Exeter look pretty poor, and it was those two, Kelly, Evans and Jones, who really led the attack. And
quickly on Biamu, we had a question on Twitter from Alex Johnson. Are Biamu's performances getting better, or is he still looking lost? Neil, I'd be interested to hear your view on Biamu's performance when he came on.
I think he's doing really well. I think his link play, more than anything else, his aerial link play is fantastic. I mean, he wins definitely more headers than he loses, and even the chance that he missed, the one that he put wide, at the time, I think we all sat in the stand and looking at it, and it seemed like an open goal. It just felt, oh, this is an open goal. He's got to put it away. And then when you watch it again, you sort of think, oh, it's not quite as sort of cut and dry as you think. I still agree with Paul. I think you could kind of see his head go down and drop, and let's hope that doesn't sort of continue into the next game. But no, I'm pleased, because after the first couple of performances with him, I wasn't feeling it. he just didn't look like he had anything about him. But it's not until we've started to see sort of him on the pitch for more minutes that there's actually something there, and there's that aerial presence which everybody seems to so desperate for us to have. I think we've got it. I think he is that aerial presence. I mean, if you want looking for someone to win headers and direct him to another player, he's your man, isn't he?
Well, it's, that was the closest it's come to him looking like that player since he's been here. It's admittedly a very short period of time. I thought there have been times where I've seen even his cameos where I've thought, I'm not sure what you offer. But on Saturday, I got more of a glimpse of it. I think it was a really encouraging performance. Really, really glad to see. Paul, sorry, you take it out from there.
No, I think the other thing with Biamu is I think, as I said earlier, for me, very much a case of I think we got to get that front four sort of working as a front four. And I think that having Devon, Kelly Evans and Jones either side of the Duck and Biamu, I think helped Biamu. I think he had more space and he had more time because the opposition were worried because they knew that if we got the ball in space with pace, we were going to tear them. And when you've only got Jody Jones in your team who's got pace and directness, then I think Biamu's got less time to play in. So against Exeter on Saturday in the second half, when we were flying at them, I think it was an easier game for him to play in. The more difficult ones are the ones where you've got McNulty up front, who isn't as physically imposing as the Duck, and who's trying to play a different type of game. When you've got Vincenzi, so you can't go down one side for pace. So I think the game opened up more by having... Devon Kelly, it's difficult not to just think he's now the world's greatest footballer because he's done what every Coventry fan wanted to do, which is basically score for Coventry. I mean, that's, whatever we think of anything else, he's done what his aim's been since he was 6. It's just he's done that dream thing we all dreamt about doing, and he's what we all want in a footballer. He tries really hard. He went up against players twice his height and he won the ball off them, and he did everything you'd want in that 90 minutes. And you were like, that's what, for me, players should be like. It's like, if you want to talk about work rate, I didn't see that in Bevan. I saw that in Devon Kelly Evans. It's like he won the ball back, but not only did he win it back, things were then happening after he did that because he could carry the ball 10 yards further forward. He was actually taking people on. He was making things happen. And that's what you sort of need in your team. This is what we discussed quite a bit recently, is having Jones is great, but you need other players. And I think it'd be a big shame now if Devon doesn't get that run of games because he's earned it. All you can do is like, basically, I'm going to give you your opportunity. It's up to you. And he's grasped it with both hands, and it's like, you can't drop me now. And you're like, well, that's none of the other strikers for me this season have really even Tony, who I was a big fan of, and I'm really sorry that he's got that season-long injury. He was given that opportunity against Port Vale, and he wasn't really involved. Like, this is like Devon's been given the opportunity, and he's really grasped it. And you're like, well, that's how it should work. Now you take that forward. And the other player is, we have possibly, I haven't seen every team and every player. If Jody Jones isn't in the top 5 players in League 2, then there are some mega stars out there. Because
good man for bringing it up. It's one of those where we're at risk of kind of just becoming used to him because he's that good. But that performance, watching it back, it was stunning. He absolutely obliterated them. I mean, they won't see a player like that all season long. It's just, and the thing is, he's doing that pretty much every single game now.
Yeah,
and that's what makes me laugh about. I know it's daft because it's man of the match awards and they don't really mean anything because they're picked by people eating roast beef and stuff. But that man, every time we're at home, he's man of the match. He's just head and shoulders above everybody else on the pitch. It's just and we always worry about what might happen if he's not on the team, but it does genuinely concern me if he wasn't in that team because he is such an important outlet for us. And I just wanted to kind of acknowledge just how good he was the other day. And as far as I could tell, I mean, this is me obsessing over the match afterwards as well, he was so far beyond everybody else on that pitch in terms of his ability to make something happen. It was just, I'm so pleased we've got him, and he's actually turned it around from the last couple of seasons where he's been struggling to kind of make his mark.
I think the other concept, he's 19. He's just, did he finally make his 100th league appearance the other week? It's just like, other people say, it's like, because I think, cause he's been here for 2 years, people are sort of, he's 19. It's just like, the
That's
kid
incredible.
There's been 9 goals scored at the Rico in the league this season. One of them Newport scored. One of them Kelly played ball through to the duck. The other 7, either he's scored or he's created. And it's just like, that's just phenomenal. And he's still, like me and Pritchard are discussing, he's like, but why do I still think he's left-footed? And it's like, mate, he's 19. And then you see he takes a shit free kick, and then he goes to cross the ball in. I think he takes 3 players out with that feint. And you're like, I don't care if he's only got one left foot. You've seen what that left foot's just done. It's just destroyed another, like the best team in the division up to that point. He's destroyed it. He's basically created the 2 goals. He probably should have. He was the one where he dribbled from his own half or just inside their half. I don't really complain about the fact he had a shot. I thought it was a good save by the keeper, and the keeper did really well, because the natural reaction for that save was to flip it right into the duck, who scores from 2 yards. I think it's a good save. Also, don't begrudge him having that shot, because it's like, at the end of the day, he's brimming full of confidence, and I don't want him to lose that.
And he's already scored that goal a number of times this season, hasn't he? He had every right to go for it. I think it just got caught under his feet a little tiny bit at the very last minute, didn't it? I think he was probably blowing a bit hard. But no, of course he has to have that shot. Like you say, I think the keeper does do very well.
And the other thing about that, if you watch that run, he kicks it with both feet, because he's not dribbling that ball. He's kicking it and running after it. And I know that sounds like a really trite thing to say, but sometimes when you've got that much, you can sort of try and be too tricky. You can try and I'm going to skin him. It's like, no, you're quicker than them. Just make sure that ball's always in front of you, and you'll win that race. And that's what he did. And the other person who deserves an awful lot of praise, who's another player who's been given an awful lot of stick, and we keep saying he's turned it around, was in the second half, our defence went complete fucking AWOL, and their player was 1-on-1 with Burge, and they really should have scored that. And he kept it down, and he kept it out, and he's got another clean sheet. And Burge, we discussed this earlier in the season, it's one of the hardest things in the world to be a goalkeeper and do fuck all for 90 minutes, but we relied on once, because that once is the only thing anyone can remember about Burge's game, is basically, did he make that save or not? And he made that save, and he kept it to 1-0 when he scored the second not long afterwards. And that it's all part of the same team. He's playing really well. As I said, I've got slight reservations about the fullbacks, but other than that team going forward is looking good. They've just got to get the first half. They've got to find a way of trying to sort of be better in the first half. But how they do that, I don't know, because as I said, when we went off at half time, I didn't see that second half performance coming. I didn't see that the jump in performance between the first and second half was remarkable. And, they tore Exeter the second half. They should have been, as I said, all 4 of the strikers or attacking players should have got at least 1. And that wouldn't have flattered us if we'd have won that game 4 or 5-0. But we only played well for 45 minutes. We've got to start putting, if we get 90 minutes out of that team, then I don't see who's going to stop us.
Can I go back to Lee Burge's save for a second? I watched a thing. I wonder if anybody saw it, because I can't remember on earth where I would have seen it. I have a feeling it might have been on Sky Sports, but anyway, it was Petr Cech talking about technique, goalkeeping technique, and he was talking about the drills and exercises that he does, and he was showing the younger keepers at Arsenal, or maybe at some school, who knows, about the ways to stop things. And one of the things that I think maybe they showed 3 different things, and one of the things that they showed was for somebody to burst straight through the middle and how to save it. And you looked at Petr Cech describing it, and you were like, "Wow, you really are." When you break it down and you slow it down a bit, and then you show it at full speed, it's such an incredible skill to have the speed of mind to assess the situation and put your technique into practice. And I just thought, having watched it back a couple of times, I think it's absolutely stunning, the technique in that save. there's people who know more about goalkeeping that might tell me that I'm talking out my arse, but I think to have made it so difficult for the striker to score in itself is impressive. But actually, the fact that he got it totally right. That keeper don't whack it straight into his chest, does he? It hits him. I think he comes out like a star, doesn't he? Maybe it hits the sort of chest and his arm area. That is a really, really, really excellent save. And like you say, for having not done barely anything all game, to be alert enough to see the danger and switch it and close it down like that, I think he's been... Jody Jones has been absolutely head and shoulders above everybody else this season. But Lee Burge, since coming back in, especially after people were saying about how good O'Brien has been, Lee Burge now is absolutely nailed on number one, isn't he? There can be no doubt about that.
We have a keeper. That's it.
Yeah,
there's no argument now. We don't have to worry about that. Lee Burge is the keeper. It's good to finally have that, because we've always had the kind of the question marks. Oh, we always like chopping and changing. Oh, next time we're going to see Reece Charles Cook because he's got better distribution. But actually, even like Burge's handling. I mean, we say we didn't have much to do, but he maybe had 4 or 5 catches that he had to make, and each of those just sorted the defence out. Just he came out, caught it, and that was it. It was just like, okay, we can relax again. And I feel so much more comfortable now with him than I maybe did a couple of years ago. It's just he's a different player now. He's a full grown professional goalkeeper, and good on him.
What do you think?
But isn't that also we discussed this at the time? It's just games, isn't it? We're never going to get the finished article unless you buy it. So if you are going to go down that route of playing your own, you've got to accept the trials and tribulations and hope that the player comes out of it the other end. I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing Ryan Haynes come back into this team, because I think if they persist with Jones on the left with Haynes behind him, that would be sort of probably about as attacking as you can get. And the other thing we did talk about, when we had Mowbray and we were going through that team where everyone was on fire, and you looked, we had about 6 or 7 players in that team who were too good for League One, and you were like, this team should get promoted because he shouldn't be in League One. He shouldn't. And you do that now with Cov, that sort of almost like a spine. You're like, well, Lee Burge probably is good enough to be a League One goalkeeper, if not slightly higher. McDonald is better than League Two, and then you've got Doyle and Kelly. Doyle's always sort of, he got promoted a couple of times. He knows what he's doing. Kelly looks too good for League Two. And then up front, you've got Jones, who looks like he's far too good for League Two. I mean, the way he's playing at the moment, he probably wouldn't look out of place in the Championship side. And then it's just, you hoping some of the others just fall in. And it's sort of, my issues with Jordan Willis has always been his lack of pace. I mean, not his lack of pace, his lack of ability to pass. We don't ask him to pass. So he doesn't have that issue isn't there at the moment. All he's doing is basically ball come, ball kick, ball get away, and you're like, that's fine. You're not trying to be Franco Baresi. You're just trying to be Stuart Pearce. You see the ball, you kick the ball. That's
he
fine.
Has a little go every now and again, doesn't he? He can't help himself. He keeps getting involved, and then Jordan has a go at those passes, and next thing you know, it's 40 yards behind the player. He can't help himself.
But and that's where we're at the moment, isn't it? But also, you take that on the back of the fact we lost against Cambridge United last week. So it's not, we have to build on what we saw for 45 minutes on Saturday. But we are defensively solid. It was always about getting that front four. Let's hope that, he sees that front four. I mean, it's just, as I said, for me, I didn't see Biamu as part of the front four. I didn't see him having the quality required. Now, he might prove not to have the quality required, but I saw enough on Saturday to give me hope that there is a link player there, or a player who can get the best out of others around him, and if he gets the best out of others around him, takes some of the pressure off, holds the ball up, brings others into play, and he only gets 10 goals. Well, he's done his job. So there were lots of positives, even though I didn't think we were as brilliant as some other people said. Or are saying we weren't magnificent, because for 45 minutes we weren't very good. But that second 45 minutes, if you're not taking hope out of that, then you might as well give up.
Neil, any thoughts that you want to add into the mixer?
No. Apart from maybe the first half, I was perfectly comfortable with it, really. It was one of those games where I'm never too fussed if it's goalless after like the first half, because these games always open up anyway. I felt we looked strong enough. I mean, they didn't look anything like that concerned me, and actually throughout the entire match, I wasn't. The only thing that concerned me was just how bullshit football can be sometimes, and even though you're the better team, and they had that chance to get the goal, and that would have been completely unjust. But I wasn't bothered really about them. I think we had them completely under control. And some people may say, oh, it's they were having an off day. But I think Paul said it earlier. Actually, we were doing the things. We were just stopping them. They couldn't be good because we were winning the midfield. We had two good centre backs. We had a good goalkeeper, and Jody Jones and Kelly Evans on the other side were just playing far better than them. And that's just good because there's no other excuses. And this is actually us coming together as a team and playing well ourselves. And sometimes it's odd because you look at that front four now and you think, oh, I wouldn't have selected that as the one that potentially is going to take us forward. But that's probably always the case, isn't it? I mean, how often is it you select a starting lineup and it's perfect? You tend to stumble onto these things more often than not, and you're either making subs and that comes right, and next thing you know, you're starting the next game with that substitute lineup. So it's always quite funny to me where we sort of think we can craft these perfect lineups. Perfect lineups don't seem to exist, I don't think. I think it's more about when you come across something that works, giving that a chance to kind of flourish. And I think we've done that with the defence now. While there's still sort of issues with each of the fullbacks in some respects, I think personally, I think they're doing quite a good job. So they're not playing perfectly and they're not playing like particularly well in portions of the matches. But overall, I think they form part of a really good unit. And it's just kind of edging forward now. So you've got that bit kind of pretty solid. You've got the two in the middle, which is solid. And now we've got something that looks like quite an exciting attacking four. So I think what Robinson needs to do is kind of commit to that now for the next game or two and just give that team a chance to kind of flourish.
Very good. Okay. Well, I think let's move on then, shall we? Dominic is going to give us his... Who have we got on Saturday? Crew. We've got Swindon tomorrow away, which is one of them games that we're going to sort of pretend doesn't exist.
Unless we win and win well, then that's all we'll talk about next Monday.
Yeah, possibly. But Dominic is going to give us his Crew preview later in the week, so you'll get a mini bonus podcast, which is that. So we'll do some quick plugs and some questions. I'm going to start with a question from Twitter from Old Man Groom. Neil, I'm going to send this to you because I think that Paul will treat it with contempt. Based on the eternal ex-player always scores against us theory, how many will Reece Charles Cook put past Burge tomorrow night?
Well, he has very good footwork, but he's also on the bench. So I probably won't get on, which is a shame, isn't it? Because you were going to say something?
Yeah, the funny thing will be if they're 1-0 down with 80 minutes gone, is that for a fact he'll be tugging on the manager's shirt and saying,
"Get me on." I wouldn't mind him. I think he's got something about him. He's got nifty footwork. I'd throw him on for a corner.
Do you know what the thing was, apparently he's got a heart problem, and so he can't last a full 90 minutes outfield.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so apparently he is a perfectly functioning outfield player and was growing up, but that he's got some sort of heart defect, which means that he can't run the full 90 minutes, so he had to drop back in goal so he could carry on playing. But by the sounds of it, he dropped out of football. I mean, admittedly, he's quite a young man, but it's quite inspiring to think of that as a setback and then just go, no, fuck it, I'll just be good in goal instead.
Yeah, just be a cool goalkeeper instead. Yeah. That's not a bad choice.
I think that's what motivates all of them videos of him doing all the skills and everything. I think in his own head he sees himself as numbers of 10. Paul, question for you. With 6 clean sheets now, is it fair to say we have the best defence in world football? That's from Jamie Dawson. Possibly a more reserved version of that from Carl Ball. Is the back four as good or as better than any we've had in the past few seasons?
It's difficult to say because of the opposition we're playing against. I mean, I suppose the only way to answer that is the record speaks for itself. They are keeping clean sheets and they're doing extremely well. As I said, I have reservations about some of them, and in my own way, I'd always be looking to strengthen the side. So as I said, when Ryan Haynes is back fit, I'd probably have him above Stokes, who I don't think's really settled into this season. I don't know why he's not looking like the player he was a couple of years back. And Grimmer, I was expecting a Ryan Haynes type right back, I suppose. That's sort of what dawned on me the other day when I was driving. Is from what I'd heard about Grimmer is, he was defensively not that sound, but offensively he was really going to add something. As I said, I'm not writing Grimmer off because I just haven't seen it, and I know other people have. And people, again, a bit like the McNulty thing, people I trust seem to tell me that he's good. I just haven't seen it. But I wouldn't. For me, if he doesn't really step it up the next couple of games, I'll try Dion. I feel he's been really unfairly dropped. I think if he'd have been brilliant, there wouldn't be this discussion. I wouldn't even be bothering to have this discussion. I think the fact for me, he hasn't really looked as good as I was expecting. I would like to see Dion back in the team.
I don't think you can piddle with it, can you? You can't touch that defence, even if you think one player isn't kind of performing. It was this kind of the Aaron Phillips thing, where people didn't think he was performing well, and he was costing us. But actually, as part of that team, that defensive dynamic, it worked. They all kind of trusted each other in a way, and it's one of those where while he might not be performing to the same level as the others, he has a job to do, and if you remove him from that, you could even put in someone better, and we might think that Evans is a better player, but it might not necessarily be particularly conducive to a good defensive unit, because they kind of have to learn each other again. And it's similar to the Ben Stevenson thing as well, where we all love Ben Stevenson, but there's something about whenever he's in the team, it kind of disrupts the dynamic of things slightly, and you need to kind of position other players around him to make him work. It's just an interesting one.
I think one of the things I'd be interested to see, although I'll probably never do so, is the back four, as is, are all big fellas, aren't they? They're all 6 foot over. And I wonder...
Is Stokes 6 foot? I thought Stokes is about 5'9", isn't he?
No, he'll be bigger than he.
He's probably... I think he's... Yeah, I'm going to see what Wikipedia says, because that's the oracle and he's never wrong, obviously.
That's what I was going to do while you were whittering on.
Okay.
You make your point and
I wonder whether...
find out.
I think especially League 2 wise, you're probably conceding a lot of really, really shit goals. Goals from set pieces, goals from crosses that aren't dealt with effectively. And as much as I think that individual player wise, Dion Kelly-Evans floats my boat a bit more than Grimmer, I'm 100% in Neil's camp here, where I'd say I don't think you can touch it. And I do wonder to what extent the fact that we've got a group of big fellas is benefiting us in a way that we don't see as overtly. Because I guess heading out across isn't particularly eye-catching. Unless you're Rob McDonald, strangely, who is very noticeable somehow. Anyway.
2 points on that. Yeah, you're right. Chris Stokes is 6'1". I think just because of the amount of times we have our fullbacks going forward, I think to some extent, maybe it's my own expectations of Grimmer. I was expecting him to be really impressed, and the fact after seeing him about 9 or 10 times, or he's played about 10 league games and I've seen about 5 of them or 6 of them, I haven't seen one game yet where I've come away and gone, no, I get it yet. I was expecting to have been like, oh yeah, I really see that. For me, I haven't. And as I said, it was interesting because me and Pritchard had a discussion at half time. In the second half, he was going to sort of point out everything he did really well. And he just had a poor second half. The guy just had him. And then there was that one touch he did where the ball came in the air and his first touch knocked it about 15 foot away from him. And he's straight to the opposition, and it was like, yeah, to be fair to him, his next touch was really good, and he sort of did pass to a teammate. So I'm not focusing on that one point, but it was sort of hilarious how it was like, he's not done that. Ooh, that touch isn't particularly good, is it? But as you say, we are keeping clean sheets, so it's just always striving for perfection.
Yeah. I've got two more questions. One I think we've answered was from Charlie Harris. Now that we're creating more chances, will McNulty have more joy when he comes back in, or was us not creating chances caused by him playing? I feel like we've sort of talked about that. I'll only get cross if I talk about McNulty again. So possibly move on from there. Final one then, one for Neil, I'm going to say. Carl Ball again. Can you remember a better debut from an academy graduate?
No, I can't. But they're always so hit and miss, aren't they? I think Paul touched on it earlier, but what's more noticeable about anything is kind of just how comfortable he seems in the team. And you often get these kids who come in, and this is almost a sign of the ones who are going to make it and the ones who are not. And some of them just don't seem to be able to adjust to sort of the expectation or the whole occasion, whereas what the Kelly Evans twins both do, they just fit. They fit into the team nicely, and we're not having to worry about them finding their feet or anything. We're just worrying about them using their natural quality. So it's just, I mean, you've got to give him a lot of credit for the way. I mean, I saw him play against Blackburn, and while he didn't have a particularly good game then, what you could still see again was this sort of comfortable player who just wasn't having to worry about what's going on in his head. He was just trying to have a good game of football, and that's exactly what you want. So yeah, I mean, we just need to give him plenty of credit for being able to come into the team and perform that well.
And also plenty of time, because I know that we've been lauding him, but I also didn't think he had the best game that anyone's ever had. And I expect that if he plays tomorrow, or that if he plays on Saturday, or both, that one or both of those games he might perform particularly amazing.
And that's perfectly fine, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I think there's a lot of promise from the pair of them.
The other thing we've got to take into consideration is he's not been thrown in as a 17-year-old. He is actually 21, and you wonder how many players
21?
even we destroy by bringing in just too early. And it goes back to that Ponticelli thing but he scored for the under-23s, and it's like, yeah, but if we wait till he's 20, 21, and he comes in and bags 10 in 10, are we prepared to wait those 2 years? Because, he might not be ready yet. It's a bit like Harry Kane didn't really kick in until he was, 21, 22? We know Callum Wilson didn't really convince until he was 21. Even sort of George Thomas, who made his debut when he was 16, it wasn't until the latter half of last season. It's difficult to remember now with George Thomas. It wasn't really till earlier this year.
Yeah. It took him a long while, didn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
and that was probably 30, 40 games. So, again, it's sort of, I think we have to be careful not to, because we've heard about these kids from quite early. We've heard about Dion Kelly Evans for a long time because of his brother and because of the conversations with James Maddison. But sometimes I think we just their career's not over if they don't make that. Always come out. I think Paul Scholes was 21 when he made his debut for Man United. It didn't hold him back. But some players like Wayne Rooney are ready at 17. I think we just have to, in this instance, and I know the Ponticelli one will always be thrown around, is maybe we have to trust Mark Robbins on this, and Ponticelli's just not ready yet. And we've also seen COD fans turn on youngsters very quickly if they're not performing, because the fans turned on George Thomas. They fucking turned on Jacob Murphy, who was brilliant. So it's sort of, I think we just have to trust that Ponticelli will get his chance. He signed a new 4-year contract this week. He's not going anywhere. So let's let him develop at his own pace instead of at the pace we want him to develop at.
Well said.
Yeah, very well said. One final thought on Devon Kelly Evans, a bit of a sort of just light-hearted thing. Did anyone read the BBC Football write-up of the game on Saturday?
I feel like I did.
I just think I've just looked on Wikipedia as well to check that he's 21, and absolutely he's 21. But his birthday was on the 21st of September, so it's just gone. And you imagine you scored your first goal proper, and then I noticed in the photos afterwards when he come out in his suit, he got his shirt over his shoulder, and he's a COV fan, and you must be on such a high at the end of it, because you must be going, right, where am I going to see my name being reported as having scored? BBC Football called him Dion Kelly Evans as the goal scorer.
No.
You just look at it and be like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I'd write to him. I'd be like, actually, you got the wrong one, signed.
That comes from the Press Association. That must have been everywhere then.
Oh,
that must have been on Sky and everything. Oh no, we've got to get this sorted.
You'd
Not
have
been
been
that.
really fucking annoyed, wouldn't you?
God's sake.
Poor lad. Right, okay. That's us. So, plugs and then out. Neil, what's going on Sky Blues blog?
Usual shit. Get down there. skybluesblog.co.uk.
1,000 words on the win, I notice.
Yep, did one, and I'll get a ramble out before the game tomorrow. Then I'll do some stuff afterwards as well. Just keeping it regular.
All action. And we've had a request to say check out at Memory Lane CCFC on Twitter, offering up a lot of nostalgia, a lot of old photos. If that's your sort of thing, get over there. Paul, what's going on with you?
I could tell you, bore you to tears about my children, but other than that, I'm fine.
So, moving swiftly on. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
And thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
And thanks for listening. Speak to you next week. Bye.